Today I'm going to attempt to do a silicone rubber mould of this dragon head. Carve this out of milliput and put some kind of details on it. Underneath this clay that I've currently popped it in, this I've carved like teeth. Here's the bottom jaw. That still needs some detail on it, but I'm working on that. I've put a little plastic border around to kind of limit how much my silicone's going to kind of run off. I want a nice thick mould. I want to kind of make it durable so I can kind of reuse it as much as possible. What this mould is for is I want to make a wax version of the head that then I can send to cast in silver. This is a wax-based clay, so it's nice and hard. It's not going to deform too much. It's actually quite strong. Basically, I put it in the microwave. I've set this in. It's nice and soft when it's warm, and it goes really hard when it's cold. So at the moment, it's cold. Brilliant. What I've got to do is I need to put kind of locators in my mould. So what we're going to do is pour the first half, and then when you do the second half, you need locators, which are basically these type of things, in and around your mould. So then your mould locates perfectly, and you don't get a off-center two halves. So I'm going to do that now. So basically, I've got three kind of slightly rounded square locators or keys. So when I put the two molds together, they're going to lock in. The holes that go all the way around the perimeter are to stabilise this edge that goes around, so I get a really nice, clean seam running all the way around the piece. Next thing to do is we've got a 2-part silicone mould, blue, white, mix equal parts of both, and it sets within 5 minutes. So I've got to work quite quickly, make sure I've got no air bubbles in this mould part. It's pretty well mixed now. There's no real stripes or anything, so now I've got to push it in, make sure I get no air bubbles, and I'm filling everywhere I want to fill. What I'm gonna do is actually just push little bits into where I think it will struggle to get into, like there, and in there. Just pack the rest in. Get in there, make sure it's filling all the gaps. The deed is done. Just gonna let it set. It's set. So it's time to demold. That is perfect. Now what I've got to do is put this back in the mould, do a resist, so when I put the next half on here, it's not going to stick to that permanently. What I want is that I put a resist on there, something like a Vaseline or like an oil-based, something that's going to stop the next load of silicone sticking to this bit of silicone. Then I can come off nice. I'm only going to do like a thin slice of silicone for this top part. Also, when I start to pour my wax into this, I will have a pour spout in this top part anyway, so then the wax can come in. What I'll also need to do is, much like I did with my sand casting when I was pouring the silver, is I've also got to do a couple of air holes coming off here. So I think the next thing to do is get some super glue and a couple of matches and just super glue some spouts onto here. Keys came out okay, but I think they could be better. So I'm just going to cut some others going in the other direction, like this. Which is just going to help. As I said, just make sure my moulds and everything line up. Excuse the noises in the background. My dog never really stops making noises. He's in a constant state of huffing, puffing, snoring while he's awake, and all that jazz. I've got to start gluing some sticks and stuff on here, so when it's when I'm pouring wax into it, it's got air to expect. I've stuck these little bamboo, basic coffee stirrers, and I've also put a wax, what will be the sprue, for when I'm pouring the wax when the mould's complete. But now, next stage is to Vaseline everything, so the next silicone bit doesn't stick to these and I can separate the moulds quite easily. Then I'm going to mix a couple of balls of this together and make the top part of the mould. Just going to put a little bit of Vaseline around the edge. Make sure I haven't got any excess Vaseline knocking around. Just put a little bit on this. That's fine. A bit on the teeth here. Right. I'm quite confident that that is all good. First off, I want to fill my keys properly this time, so I'm going to do those first. Like that. Like that. Right, now put the rest on. Really want to focus on the teeth because that's the main part of this bottom half. Pretty much all of my little air sticks that will be like the channels where the air can escape. I had super glued to the model, but they all came off. So I'm hoping that they're roughly in the right place. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I can cut into this. I'm gonna wait for that to set. Be a couple of minutes, and we'll see how we got on. God, I love this stuff. It's brilliant. Anyway. See how we got on. So it's separating nicely, which means the Vaseline did its job. A little wiggle. Haha! Voila! So the air hole's perfect there. It's perfect there. It's not in the right place there. That's fine, because I'll just cut a little groove. But no, chuffed with that. So I just picked this up from Aldi. I wanted something, a square, somewhere where I can heat up my wax, melt the wax, and then pour it in. I thought the square's best for that because when you tilt it, it'll all go into one corner. But I do need a spout here, so I'm going to grind a little V into here so I can pour it into the mould. This is the wax we're melting. So jewelry wax is super, super hard. Like, so tough. Heat that up, which is going to take a while, so fast forward. Now this stuff retains its heat quite a bit, so I really don't want to get my... It's not like normal wax where you can put your finger in when you're playing with a candle and things like that. This stuff will stick to you and it will burn you. The good thing about it retaining its heat, is that it's got time to properly fill the mould and it won't just dry as soon as it hits it. So let's give it a go. Okay, I'm just going to hold it off. Oops. So I'm just vibrating it, hopefully get rid of all the air bubbles if there is any. Give it a chance to really fill all of the mould. And then all the rest. Oops. So I'm just giving it a squeeze like this, pulsating it a bit, giving any air bubbles that are in there a chance to come back out if they can. Unblock that air hole there. It's going to take a while to properly set within there, especially being within a rubber mould. It's really, it's really still quite hot in there. And I want to cool this down a bit quicker, so I'm just going to pop it in the freezer. This wax is crazy. I mean, look, it's closer to plastic than anything. But it's great for carving. Like, you can literally carve things, you know, precision carving, and it finishes to like a mirror finish as well, which is awesome. But really cool stuff. Anyway, it's been in the freezer about 10 minutes or so. A little bit of residual heat, but it's mostly cold. Ooh, ooh. It hasn't cast completely in some of the horns, but the great thing about making this mould today is that I can do 100 of these and just pick the best one. I can keep going, so let's see how the rest of it's come out. So I'm just blowing it. Normally you use an air compressor if you were doing this, like, you know, in a casting workshop or something, you'd put like an air compressor tool down here, blow some air between it, but I'll just give it a wiggle. And we have a dragon. It's not bad at all for the first crack at that. There's some things I can improve on. There's a couple of things that are kind of indicating, right, what I need to do next. Can you see here it's almost got like contour lines? You know, almost like a geographical map with these contour lines. I think that's where I pulled it in a bit hesitantly. And it's actually, you get like the first wave of wax, and then the second wave, and then the third wave, and then you end up getting these ribbons that don't quite kind of blend into each other, so they're a bit crumbly around here. So that's something to it follows around here as well, you know, up into this bit here, more so on this side. Look, there's actually like gaps here and here. There's a little bit of kind of porosity. That's kind of like mottling, and you lose a little bit of detail there. I think now the next go, I'm gonna put a very light layer of Vaseline in there and just see if that will end up smoothing out the surfaces when the wax goes in. The second one went well. The Vaseline actually did work. You compare it to this, you've got all this like crumbly porosity and things like that. It came out a lot clearer. Also, the horns came out perfectly. What didn't cast last time was this like little peak here. That's cast really nicely. The cheekbones, again, came out really well. They didn't even come out at all this side. And there was like a bit here that was missing on this one. Again, it came out perfectly. Now I did it a little bit different, and maybe a little bit of risk to myself in that when I poured it, that's in there. As soon as I poured it, I put my mouth over this hole and blew as hard as I could. Basically what that does is it created pressure in here, which pushed all the liquid wax as far as it could go to fill that cavity. Normally what you'd do in kind of industrial uses is you'd put this in a vacuum, but I couldn't do that, so I just blew as hard as I could, trying not to burn myself. I didn't just let it dry like this one. What I wanted to do is I opened it early and poured out all the excess, which means it's nice and thin there. You can actually, should be able to just see my hand through it, which means when I go to cast it, I'm not wasting silver. It'll be expensive, so it's making it a little bit hollower, which is what I was gonna do anyway, but that kind of skips a stage. It's come out really nicely. I mean, even the teeth have come out really well. Chuffed.